Outside of that, we have two large announcements. First and foremost, we are not in your garage.
Correct.
So we're not freezing. I'm in a t-shirt. It's great. It's like 13 degrees outside. We are recording in my basement. So that's where we are. There's heat in here. Mm-hmm. It's great. And yeah. And then this showed up in the mail and you're like, hey, we're New Year's resolution for the podcast. Let's become official. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And we found through the Stave and Thief Society and the Moonshine University that they have a program that you can take that's like the only legitimate blessed off thing that exists for whiskey to prove to people you actually know something about whiskey.
Right.
So for us, we got the book, we put in the elbow grease and read and studied, and it was interesting because we didn't realize how much we knew until we opened the book, and they're like, yeah, this is what you have to get tested on. And we're like, wow. So I know about 65% of this stuff before I even dive into like the 5th chapter. So that was nice.
Which I think speaks volumes to our podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to like, yeah, rah, we're great. But our whole premise of the podcast was to interview small businesses to give them a platform to promote. And we started that with distilleries. So if anybody has been following us from the beginning, we've talked to basically every single distillery in the Buffalo area around their distilling process, which, I mean, some of the big things in there was barrel aging, which we're like best friends with Justin Hartman from Hartman's Distilling, who has a whiskey seminar that you and I participated in quite a bit, which covers all of that stuff. We had the sour mash process, which there's a distillery down in Ellicottville that we interviewed that does the sour mash process. So a lot of the intricacies within this book, we've already talked to head distillers that are actually doing it, which is, yeah, as soon as we open that book, I'm like, you know what? Let's just do this. When we got the book at first, we were like, you know what? We'll dedicate days. We'll read it over. We'll take the test like a while down the road, man. Like, I want to know this from front to back. That night when we got that book, we actually recorded an episode that day when we got it.
Yeah.
That night, I read the entire thing. The next morning, I took the test, nailed it.
Yeah.
It was just, we really don't give ourselves a lot of credit when it comes to this stuff.
No, not at all.
If you thought, even before we got this book and you looked into that, what did you think your chances were of passing this before you even looked at that book?
Low until a couple months ago. And then when we started talking to more and more people about, like you said, the process and everything else, it started to click in my head that we were literally speaking the same language without officially doing any type of work for the distilleries. And we're like, how are we, like, it doesn't make sense that we're able to pick all this up. And then once I read the book, I'm like, this is cake. Like, I will be okay. Obviously, there's the other side of me with like test anxiety, and I flip out and I'm like, this is like super important to me. I really don't want to fail. And you're like, dude, relax, just take the test. And then we destroyed it. Like, we both got over 95%, which is incredible. So I'm very happy with that. But it's realistically for you guys so that you know we're not totally full of it. We're not just randomly saying things that you would think go with bourbon. Like, it's a more realistic taste and experience for us, and we're trying to give you the best and most honest feedback possible with every product. So now that we're officially stewards, I mean, it just kind of adds that level of professionalism that we always aim for, but it gives us more credibility, and I think most importantly, self-confidence to know, like, we can hang. Yeah. So I'm very excited, and I'm so relieved that that's over with.
Right.
So, like, to do that, I've taken a lot of very important tests in my life, whether it's college, with the Army, things like that, but this is, for some odd reason, this literally freaked me out.